Hello, everyone. Before we dive into today's episode, I wanted to remind you that my book, Drummers on Drumming, is available now on Amazon as both a paperback and an ebook. Based on the Big Fat Five segment of this podcast, where I sit down with my favorite drummers to discuss the 5 records and stories that shaped their approach to the instrument, this book is packed with insights from the drummers who redefined how we think about the modern drum set. You can grab your copy now by checking the link in this episode's show notes or simply searching Drummers on Drumming on Amazon. So thank you for all the support, and now let's get into the show. What is up? Welcome back to Drummers on Drumming, a podcast powered by Big Fat Snare Drum. We're back with another installment of The Drum Panel, which is our roundtable series where we tackle drumming's most interesting and polarizing topics with some of your favorite drummers. Today, we've got 2 fantastic guests joining the conversation. First up, we have Eric Lederman. Eric is a producer at Late Night with Seth Meyers, where for years he oversaw the rotating drummer chair, regularly bringing in incredible drummers to fill in with the 8G band when band leader Fred Armisen couldn't be there. Eric's done a ton to elevate the drumming community, and we're stoked to have him on. And also, we're joined by Neil Daniels, one of my closest friends and an amazing drummer who's worked with artists like Liz Phair, LP, and currently Matchbox 20. Let's just dive into it, and I hope you enjoy this episode of The Drum Panel. Cheers. Well, I have to say, this is the most nervous I've been because I'm literally sitting with a producer and I really don't do much prep at all. And you were asking for prep, and
sorry.
So this is good. No, it's never a bad thing for me to do a better job at my job. So,
well, look, I'm thrilled to be here. I was saying before we started recording that I think the IG account is very, very funny. And one thing I'll say about trying to be honest as a person who works in comedy and producing, who's now I'm not in the daily writing at the show at all. The funny ideas and the funny people, you don't have to have like a WGA title or have a writing job or be a comedian. The funniest people are scattered amongst us, and the Big Fat Snare account is very, very funny, and I enjoy it. I don't keep the notifications on. When it comes, it comes. But I do enjoy it, and it's very funny, and you should take solace in the fact that you're a great entertainer. And the 2 podcasts I've heard for 6 minutes each before I got bored, I loved every minute of it. You have a great voice. If only people could see that beautiful punum. My God, it'd be a fucking woo.
Well, wow. Joke's on you. I'm actually releasing the video of this, so they'll see both of us.
Mm-hmm. And then
the drum panel started off with more controversial topics. That's all we talked about. And then it kind of morphed into more just drum shop talk. But I do want to start with some hot takes for you guys. So This one has been talked about in the podcast with me and Eric before. Eric Urea, my other host, not Lederman. But I'll ask it again because I'm sure you guys have opinions. AI will replace drummers.
Ugh, Neil,
what's AI?
Just to be clear, I am not regularly playing or obviously touring or gigging or anything like that. So please let Neil answer all the real drummer questions first, and then I'll come in with something that harkens back to when I was, and then I'll be great. Neil, please.
I don't know. Maybe AI can help with recording drums. I don't see how it could replace live drums.
I guess live drums, yeah. I guess that one is sacred. It's more so studio drumming and that world.
I don't know. I mean, there's already Beat Detective, which takes the soul out of everything, so I'm not sure how much more AI can damage things.
I mean, Superior Drummer, it really does sound pretty identical. I mean, obviously there's still that Uncanny Valley experience, but I wouldn't be surprised in a few years if there is a plugin, because there already is one that just you could for hip hop beats, you can just makes the beats and it's royalty free. But I can see there being an app where it's Superior level sounds, and they just make the whole drum part. You type in what you want with a little paragraph, and it does the whole thing.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't even know how to do that. So luckily for me, I have to,
Is it more about I kind of liken it to vinyl and physical media, and everyone's Kindle, and I think a lot of people, there is a resurgence that always happens, and when it happens and how tall the wave is in the zeitgeist varies, but people like books and people like vinyl and people like seeing people actually play drums, even if it's in the studio. They like hiring someone because they know what kind of person they are. It's like when we had drummers on the show, you could have the greatest drummer in the world, but someone who came back more than once, like maybe they weren't like the A-list giant name, but I knew that it would be a positive human interaction. So I just feel like people are going to get real tired of, just like they get tired of like slick, like metal production and all that stuff. I think they want to hear the human feel. And to sort of say that we can do that in music is really naive at least for a long-term solution. I mean, whatever's after AI, I mean, that's a dumb thing to say, but however much better the AI gets, maybe it'll come down to that. And if everyone's like working in like Road Warrior, like an environment, and there's no people left, I don't know. I just feel like eventually people always come back to people until there aren't people, but it's going to make a dent. So
Such a good answer.
is it?
Such a good talker.
It's also a positive answer. So everyone listening that was
Yes.
scared, it's like, okay, Eric's got our back.
My bad. By the way, that's the last positive thing I've got to share. That's it.
Yeah, this isn't why I invited you on, dude.
I know, my bad. Sorry. Produce myself. Fuck. Okay.
Well, speaking of the show and working with drummers, what is the first thing you notice when you get a drummer on that shows you they might not be as good of a drummer as you thought they were online?
Oh, can't wait. Go.
It's a great question because it's a question that a working drummer asks. You know what I mean? And the drummers, there were plenty of drummers I brought in who I call them like on my wall drummers, like who are just monsters and masters. And they're like, what's this musical task I'm being assigned? No problem. Like Jimmy Chamberlain or something like that. Like, Abe Boreal Jr. or just guys with long-term gigs who play the same kind of music and work with the same band, and in the same sort of like, what's the assignment? And it's like, we have this show, we have this tour, we have this album to make. Now I think what happens is you have someone who's done one thing and they've only done that one thing and they've never done anything else or branched out or don't do anything else with drums, and they're like, the phrase wasn't over, or that's not how I'm used to the count, or oh man, it's really cold in here, or this isn't my kit, or I don't have a second floor. Those are the kind of guys who came in that, because I worship them so much, and because of course, I have a job to do, which is, even if I made a bad hire, someone who I thought is an amazing drummer, which I never really got to 100% accuracy, like it's always a wait and see until they get their ass on the kit. And you're like, oh, it's hard for them. And a lot of those guys who I'm not a name dropper, but like they would admit to me like, whoa, this is tough. But even so, those guys, when Thursday came around, it was the last show, they're like, man, I'd love to come back. And I'm like, right, but you weren't good. And I held your hand the whole week, and it was a pleasure to have you. And I loved taking you to dinner, and I loved that I got to do all this stuff for 10 years on the show, even though, as we know, there's no band anymore and there's no drummers. The show continues just in a sans band format. But it's funny to like, the ego takes over by the end of the week, and they're like, I crushed it. Can't wait to come back. Like, yeah, like when could we book this? And I'm like, in what world? Also, don't make me say that, because like I'm the guy. I think I said there was a very famous metal guitar player I was out with the other night, and he was asking about doing day drinking on the show with Seth. And again, I'm not a name names kind of person, but I said, yeah, that'll never happen. And he was like, what do you mean? And I go, it just won't happen. It's like, you are great, but you don't fit into this thing. And as much as I would want to see this, and as much as I think it would be entertaining, there's just a thing that's not going to happen. And the look on his face was like really stunned. He was like, okay. And I'm like, oh, is this where you hire me because I'm honest and direct with you and to do some side work? And like the bottom line is like, he didn't love it. Sure. But it was true, and I was being honest about it. So I think that just letting the week happen and then letting people go on their way, and then they usually don't hit me up to come back again, but they want to be asked back again, which was an interesting facet of the job for sure.
Neil, how easy was Eric on you?
Well, the show is easy, but we kept getting up really early to eat bagels at 6 a.m. LA time. So I was coming on on camera bloated, full of gefilte and Hummentaschen.
It's true. Neil was one of those people. There was no notes. There was like one thing, like maybe like, oh, it's actually this. Okay, got it.
I'm not surprised.
There's a lot of white guy rock drummers out there. Sorry, like that's the truth of it. I was never given a mandate, but I always wanted to be diverse in who I booked, genre, gender, everything, style. because drums are for everyone. Okay, whatever. But Neil was one of those guys who I did take a bit of a gamble on. And I was like, all right, he's playing with artists I know. He's playing with multiple artists I know. He's constantly working. He's not just with like one artist, and he's trying to get his name out there. This is someone who I'm going to take a chance on and book. And then, of course, bagels, gefilte fish, all that stuff, of course, like really helps the week. It says a lot about a gigging drummer when it's like, this is the job. It is a job. It is not here for you to like enjoy the spotlight. That's secondary. But this is the job. This is the requirement. This is what I need you to do. I'm happy to hold your hand to get through the week. But Neil's someone I'm like, this is the assignment. And he's like, I got it. And that was it. And then I turn off and go back to what I was hired to do, which is the other many other things that I do on the show. The drums was always very, and the band was always very like secondary, but it took up a lot of my time, especially when there was a drummer who didn't know how to like play drums properly. And that was not the case with Neil, who's on this podcast. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, I'm a fly on the wall for this. Oh, that's very nice. It was one of the craziest, coolest experiences of my life, and it's very stressful to have to, you're watching the guy put his arm down to end the song on whatever beat you are in the phrase, and there's a camera on you, and you're trying to look cool.
And playing a Ludwig,
very,
yuck, right?
Yeah,
I'm just
So,
kidding.
the brands are for everyone.
Yes.
the Pisces were there.
In the beginning, before I got there, they just had a Gretsch kit. And then I was like, oh, then when it became a thing, I was like, I called Aaron at Tama, who had signed me after many drunk nams of me being like, dude, come on, I'm ready.
It's time.
It's time. I'll tell you my story. I got signed later if we have time for that bullshit, but it's very funny. Aaron knows I tell the story, but anyway, then I had Tama kit. And then since I was a Tama endorser, I really wanted to have one, but I also wanted to spread the love out. And so I got to know Uli at Ludwig through Dietrich, who became the A2 and drum tech and sort of band manager of all the gear and making sure those guys were good, because he was he and still is Quest guy when he goes out with the Roots. And now he's over at SNL. But he's like, hey, check out these Ludwigs. I'm like, look, we all know, and this should be a thing to talk about, which is hot take, like entry level drum kits, mid-range drum kits, and it's like, and all of them sound great and it doesn't matter. But he turned me on to Ludwig, and my partnership with Uli was like a great one, and he had a lot of ideas. But the point is, I was always going to swap the kit every few months, like every year, like switch the brands. But then COVID hit, and then the writer's strike hit, and my relationship with Uli was so good, so I left it at Ludwig.
It's a beautiful kit. Where is the kit now?
It's in my office.
It is nice, as it should be.
It's in my office. And I literally, when I have a minute and I want to like just watch something, like I have to watch some video or something, I turn around in my chair and I have these beautiful, it's in these beautiful Humes and Bird cases. And I literally put my feet on the kick and watch TV like this. And I'm like, this makes sense. It takes up a quarter of the office, but they're there in the tower reminding everyone that like a budget cut was made and it wasn't a good one.
Well, Eric, let's go back to the whole most shells sound the same in a live setting. No one can tell. What do you feel about that?
It was DW that came up with the whole tune, I don't know anything about music theory. So the different like tunings and pitches of drum shells, right?
Yeah.
Is there anything unsexier, like an ad campaign to buy into, where I'm going to run down to Guitar Center, inventory meltdown, green tag, and go down there and just be like,
That was good.
yo, I heard that these shells are all timbre, whatever it is, matched, and I need an F sharp to D to E minor, and I need that like ascending.
It's my sound.
Yeah, that's my fucking sound. So no, I think it's insane. I think you're trying to, Fred and I talk about this all the time, which is constantly reinventing the wheel. And Cowboy Drummer does a good job with this stuff, where it's like sideways hats and stuff like that, because we don't need anything else. I will say I played the mirror rod at NAMM for the new linkage, and it's fucking awesome. And I was like, oh, this
No, it's
rips.
not.
It's awesome. No, it's much smoother. It's great. It doesn't matter for me, but it felt great. And I'm like, this is great, but there's so many, like, we can't get a better drum sound from acoustic drums. It's done. Entry level kits, when you guys all started, right? They sounded like shit, genuinely. And now entry level kits sound great. You could play any entry level kit and take it out on the road with a good tech and a good front of house guy, and it'll sound great. Sorry. Is that a hot take? Because it's up there with fucking pitch shells and all that shit. Get the fuck out of here.
Well,
Stop it.
Two things. The first thing, the rod you were talking about for the audience, it is the connector on a double bass drum pedal from the pedals. It's literally the rod. So that's what Eric was talking about. Yeah, the linkage. And it just made me a worse double pedal player. And I don't play double pedal, but it was so smooth that it almost made me feel
interesting.
Worse.
Okay.
Secondly, I will agree with you, and I will say that speaking of Questlove, that 10-inch poplar tom that he has on his breakbeat kit, I love that 10-inch tom, or however big it is. It might be an 8-inch tom, but it sounds so good.
Of course it does. And it's also the way he hits it and the way he uses it in music. You don't want my dumb ass putting that in. I wouldn't know what to do with it, but yeah, it sounds great. It's overwhelming. There's too many options. But they have to keep finding ways to sell things and selling those 10 by 10 booth spaces and reinventing the wheel. I get it, but we have everything we need, guys. We've got it all. It's done.
The best musicians aren't making hit songs. They're making music for musicians.
Yeah, a lot of people are making music for Instagram views, which is what a lot of my feed is, which is why I'm just following a lot of food accounts because it drives me nuts.
You guys, when you see that as working, touring, and recording drummers, because again, this is not my livelihood. There was a time like when it was, but how do you guys as working drummers, how does that affect your brain? And then does it make you want to quit? I mean, obviously it sort of does, and be like, well, what's the point? Or does it really make you want to reinvent? I think that's the question. Does it motivate you to reinvent?
Yeah, I mean, I try and separate what I'm trying to do with those people that are just strictly trying to be Instagram drummers, because, and we talked about this with the other Eric too, but that is a new gig. So those people, I don't think they're trying to do what I'm trying to do. They're not trying to be musical for the song. They're trying to be, I'm on Instagram, blah, 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 look at me, flashy, flashy, get likes, maybe send some free gear, maybe be able to network and meet people that way. But my drumming, I don't feel territorial about it, because that's a lane that I just don't really care about. Yeah, it doesn't really bother me, but I acknowledge that they're all so much better than me.
Yeah, I mean,
same.
Is that how I feel like Neil probably feels the same way.
Same way, yeah. Maybe they don't want to go on tour and they just want to, I mean, they could be making a lot of money from Instagram and all the views and endorsements and stuff, but most of the stuff I do doesn't require anything that complicated.
I know. I need to get better at just doing videos of just me playing a song, because I have so many MDs, or when I try and apply to gigs and they ask me for any sort of, I have to scour YouTube for a live video of Eve6 or Cannons. I don't have just here's all my videos of me playing.
When you guys are out, when I was out and my short-lived touring experience, I made it a point to set up my laptop, and it was shitty, but I always got the board mix. But I made it a point to try to record every one of my shows.
I need to get way better at that.
Just for me, and that was 2008 through 2010. Because to me, that came out of trying to get jobs in TV and being like, well, what have you worked on? When I was freelance, which could happen any moment, because that's the business. And so then I would be like, oh, I worked on David Spade's show, and I was in this sketch, because I was also doing on-camera stuff for commercials with zero acting training, because my friends thought I was funny. It's like, oh, you could do this. And I'm like, oh, I don't have any training. Like, oh, no, just do it. And I will tell you that because I saved a lot of those things, I was able to walk into audition rooms with real actors. And I used to walk into those auditions also sometimes with my dog, because I thought it was fucking funny and I had no skills. So I'm like, well, I'll just do a bit. And I would make it a point after the commercial happened or after the show happened that I was a behind the scenes person on, to always ask for the footage immediately. And if I knew that for when I was playing as a drummer, I knew that no one else was going to record me. It was about Pearl or someone from a house concentrating on Scott, or someone like Scotty and was playing guitar. So it's no, who the fuck wants to see me? No one. You have to be responsible for yourself, and you have to do those things, because even Neil and I speak at length about how competitive it is out there, and you guys are both great players, but the fact that, to me, make a reel, you have to treat yourself like an actor, or a producer, somebody, or a writer. It's here's my packet. I just think it's so competitive right now. The word of mouth thing only goes so far anymore, because everyone's good. Yeah. There's a lot of overplayers, and there's a lot of flash and no substance and blah, blah, blah. But there's a lot of rock solid players out there. And that's why, again, as I joke, it's just when I had rock players come across my desk, people I didn't know, I'd be like, this guy's great. It's just like, but I have so many players like that. I have to like divvy it up and like spread the love around so we have all sorts of people. But the competition is fucking fierce. And the people who are tech savvy, so just like people on TV, they want to be on camera. They want like they all sit there and they don't have to rent any equipment. They can do it all on their phone or their laptop or their iPad, and that's it. And there's still people out there who don't do it, which makes me nuts now because now there's no excuse because every ding dong out there can market themselves sitting in their tiny apartment and make themselves look like $1 million. It's literally insane.
I always try to post for the gig that I want,
Oh.
which is what I tell people. I also filmed everything for years and still do with my GoPro, and then I always get like a monitor mix or a front of house mix, and because we all love watching videos of drummers as you scroll on Instagram and all you hear are cymbals.
I love that.
So it is nice to have some sort of a front of house mix.
Headphones.
And it's nice to post clips and like instead of like some chops that you're really proud of, I try to focus on like posting for the gig that I want next. If people are looking for a drummer, they will look at your Instagram.
Yeah.
And it's nice to have stuff on there that, represents what you do or what you want to do.
I mean, there's a lot of writers hired on late night because of their social activity. One guy was like an IT guy who just was active on Twitter. And Seth and my boss were like, "Oh, we're gonna pluck from this guy who's just a great joke writer." They didn't look at his credit. He had no credits. But is that what it is now? I mean, I guess that's that's how I picked a lot of people. It was like YouTube links, but also like, just let me see that IG.
Neil, you mentioned being a fly on the wall in this conversation, but if you could be,
I'm having a great time.
If you could be a fly on a wall for any recording in history, what record would that be?
I can't wait to get what cock rock example this is.
Puddle of Mud's first Black Album, 1000%.
Did you know Gunner at the time when we did like the whole Loudon audio thing?
No.
Okay.
Shortly after, I missed the boat.
I asked Eric because we were able to go to the actual studio that the Black Album was created in with the actual Gretsch. Unfortunately, not Tama. Well, it is the Terminator, obviously snare, but it's a Gretsch kit. And
yeah, not many people know.
I don't know why I inserted that. Basically, I was saying like I got to almost do what you wanted to do, but continue.
That's the coolest. I mean, but Neil, here's the thing. There's a lot of footage from that recording session that they use, and they also put as like B-roll for like all the videos, like Nothing Else Matters, and we all know.
A Year in the Life of Metallica.
All of it, yeah.
YouTube series. Yeah.
What about you, Eric?
Mine is definitely Injustice for All because I more want to be in the mix. I want to find out the mystery of the whole no bass fiasco, which we know why, but ultimately who did it, why they decided to mix it that way. Was it really worth having, tributing, Cliff? Was it just a mistake? I love it. And I want to see how chopped up the record was and Lars's drum stuff. I want to see those solo takes. The record is so dry and it's such a pivotal turn for them. Even though it's like a hard record, it's a ripping record. It's not the Black Album as far as trying to appeal, universally and break through, but it was their breakthrough record because remember they booked them in like arenas blindly, thinking that they were just like they're going to sell it. It's like this is a big deal, and they were right. But to actually hear all the choices they made on that record, because sonically it's so weird, and Black Album is like dessert, but Justice is the record that turned me out of Metallica. And I want to know the songwriting process, everything, mostly how the fuck they chose those sounds. Cause I like the way the record sounds. A lot of people, anyone who likes like Muppets, anything before does not, but I think it's very unique. And I think it's a testament to the band going out and trying new shit. And I love it. Yeah. And then like, remember them throwing like darts at Kip Winger, picture of Kip Winger on the back of like the door. I'm like, these guys are fun.
The best tour bus watch ever is Some Kind of Monster.
Yeah.
Related but unrelated.
Well, it's because it's relatable. 3 weeks into a tour, you're like, I don't judge any of these guys. No one's being an asshole. They're all just dealing with shit.
Yep.
Did you get people who weren't into Metallica to watch that?
Oh, of course.
Yeah, that's the win.
It's universally relatable. The Therapist.
Yes.
The sweater. Phil, right?
Phil. Yeah, the whole thing.
So fun.
Well, before I pivot, I guess I want to talk to Neil about this. When you play, because I play obviously with Eve 6, you play with legacy acts. How do you balance giving the 3 drummers in the audience the fills they want versus kind of giving it a new life? How does Rob let you deal with that? All that jazz.
I try not to play for the drummers in the audience because I start thinking about like what my friends want to hear me play or if I'm sloppy. I think if you stop playing for the drummers in the audience, so much pressure is just relieved from you. I don't know. I mean, that band has drum parts. Paul, the drummer, is in the band. He plays guitar now. Some of those parts are pretty recognizable, so it almost makes it easier. You're just playing the part. I don't know.
That's professionalism right there, Ben. Like, it's not about anymore being in high school or college or even like in like your 20s and even now as fans and being like, he's got to nail it. You know what I mean? Like if Abe Cunningham plays Shove It and he hits the floor tom and then the snare, you're gonna be like, what are we doing? Like you got it's like play it right and play it so it sounds right. But that's how you work. You work by going against the instincts. You literally have to reverse engineer your brain. Mm-hmm. That's insane.
And I'm saying to myself, I say all the time, don't do it, or do it. I have trouble now, like playing out or playing a lot of fills because I'm so, it's not like I'm in a box, but I don't know. I mean, we don't love play for the song anymore, but I mean, that is really what it is on a big scale. I mean, you're playing to a room full of a lot of people and they want to hear the song. So, I mean, that's what you're hired to do. So you kind of have to take yourself out of it and just do the work.
So that comes down I know that Neil auditioned for Primus. Can we say that? Like
yeah, but I didn't. I mean, I just made it.
I know, but I remember. Hold on. 1 second. Hey, Les.
Hang on, Les is calling me.
Yeah, Les. So I know, but everyone sort of knows it's like a public thing. You guys like posted about, you're not like the Primus account. It's not like a big content page, but you guys like really took this drum. You really ran with it. Yeah. No, I know you know. And I know, and we all saw it. No, I understand. You take that up with Tim. Okay, thanks. Okay, thanks, Les. Ooh.
I just ordered one of Tim's t-shirts.
Mm-hmm. What about some cider? I'm sure there's some dead stock of the cider. So when I was watching Neil audition for Primus and then watching the video that Neil posted of his sister fucking with him and turning off the lights when he was ripping and playing all these fills, like I'm
so much better then.
I know, but that's the thing. I listen to myself playing Senior Year Homecoming and playing an original song, and my double bass is fucking effortless and flying. It's insane. All my strokes are
so fast.
My strokes are so clean. My tempo is terrible, but my fucking I can't even believe the whole time I was playing it down. It was.
Yeah, definitely didn't hear that.
Yeah,
I couldn't do that.
I love that they went totally silent.
Nothing? You got to put that in.
Yeah. I'll put just send me the song and I'll put it in as if you played that.
Oh my God. The song was called Jacob's Ladder. And the point is, it was just the idea of, even if it wasn't the perfectly fit, like you just turned off your brain. And I was like, this is raw instinct what I'm going to play. And I was just listening to grunge at that point. And like, yeah, Metallica, but like, my strokes were so fucking even and so good because I wasn't thinking about anything. I was just like, I'm going to play some double bass rips. And I'm like, I think I broke my hinge on my 5000. I better call Rich Teeter in Carl Place, New York and see if I can order some extra hinges from DW. That means he has to call California. Probably talking about a 2-month turnaround, but I'm going to call like immediately. Like that's like what it was. Everything was just so, you didn't think about anything. God, I love that.
Yeah, well, I was definitely playing for the drummers in the audience for sure.
That's all it was. Like, did you hear Liederman? Like, he plays 2 bass drums now, and then you have to explain why it's not 2 bass drums, and that was only for nerds. But anyway, sorry. So when I saw Neil playing the Primus stuff, I could see him hesitating. Not like it didn't sound bad, but like he didn't want to go off with those fills. But then when he did them, I'm like, you have the chops, but you're so used to reining them back and also showing them that you can play pocket. I was like, and because the guy they chose, like, that guy's he's showing showboating all the way, and he's great, but you have those chops. But all the things that inspired us to play drums are the things that we're tucking away and not using, which is a whole other episode.
Yeah, but that's what your studio's for. I rip at home alone, and that's cool. I am holding back, but it's hard to do that too. It's almost harder to not play the fills in a live situation. Like I had a really bad tendency of playing so many ghost notes. That was like my thing. As a kid, I always wanted to have a lot of ghost notes. And now that's almost like a bad thing. And I've, over the years, have gotten some critiques about, holding that back in a live situation.
In a live or on a recording?
In a live situation, sometimes even with Matchbox, some front of house guys mix differently. They have a gate higher or lower on a snare, and sometimes your ghost notes aren't heard. And like for instance, our guy is, you can hear everything. That's why it's important to record yourself with the GoPro and get the front of house mix so you can see how you're coming across.
Yeah.
Because sometimes like I'm so out of the loop and like I'm just like in my own world and not thinking about it, but you're like, holy shit, like those ghost notes are really like making this section feel like it's dragging. Sometimes you just don't know. So I always just love listening to front of house tapes. You really, that's like the only way to learn, really.
Well, ghost notes for me are like when you go to the dentist and they're like, open your mouth wide, and you get it wide, and then you're like, I'm going to keep it open this time. So they stop asking me. And then after 30 seconds, you realize you've like closed your mouth. Ghost notes, I don't know that I'm doing them. I can even walk into a situation and be like, I'm going to be fucking Benny 2 and 4 today. And it's just, I'll watch a footage and it's just, I'm ghosting all over the place. It's like I black out.
Why do you do it? Is it just like almost like a way to like for like a busy minds, busy hands, just like keep it active in between?
You don't even
2 and 4?
think about it.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's like a safety net or something. Like you feel like, you know, you do like a little rough into like a backbeat. It becomes like such a habit. And sometimes like that stuff just really doesn't fit. And it's like, if you play a beat with a bunch of ghost notes and then you try to play the same beat without any ghost notes, it feels wildly
It's a
different.
crutch for sure. It's a subdivisional crutch. Yeah.
Yeah. I still struggle with that to dial it back.
Eric Urrea, the other host, talks about his theory is that it's because drums are such a staccato instrument. Anything else, you hit it and you hold your finger on a piano, it can sustain, and cymbals can sustain for sure. But drums themselves, it's just a got, no more sound. Our notes are so short that there's so much space between them that other instruments don't really deal with. So that's why drummers overplay, is because we're trying to fill up this fucking white noise.
Well, you know what that's like then? I have this problem where I'm when you're in a conversation with someone new and I'm always trying to fill the space so it's not awkward. And I have a tendency to sometimes like, someone's like, oh, well, I remember when I was in therapy with my ex-wife, she's like, you're just talking the whole time. And I'm like, I'm just filling it with ghost notes, you idiot. But it takes discipline to not fill the space and like let someone else talk. And that's a shortcoming that I have in my communicating with other people. Sometimes I'm like, I need to, it's not that I don't think I'm a bad listener, but sometimes it's just like, I don't need to fill the space with fodder. And same thing like with the playing. Because then when I put it in, it changes the whole feel of the conversation. I know it's like a stupid metaphor, but I do think it sort of tracks. Like, just leave it. That quarter note you played sounds great. Leave it. That's it.
It's so hard.
It's so fucking
so much
hard.
Easier said than done.
Yeah. I should really play drums more.
I was hoping there would have been
really
just a natural silence of like 5 seconds and then just the ending music starts. I mean, before I let you guys go, I did ask you if you had anything on your chest you wanted to get off to bring it on. So no pressure, but was there any sort of hill that you wanted to die on and talk about, since you have the platform of controversial takes?
So I was lucky enough to see McCartney do name drop Bowery Ballroom with Abe on drums, name drop. That's a Giuliano story. He told me that time. He's talking about someone else, and he would say, "Oh, this guy's the best name dropper." He's like, "I went to go see Abe Laboriel down playing at the thing, and he's wonderful." But I also got lucky enough the next night to see Mark and Giuliano. But that I saw Abe at Bowery, which is 500 people, and I was like second row, big beak, like in like all the press shots, like of like, oh, Paul McCartney plays, and there's me like. With like fucking Ichabod Crane, that basically. But seeing Abe, I've seen him in big stadiums and stuff. But seeing Abe play Beatles and Wings and McCartney stuff and singing, and of course just like best in the biz shit as a person and as a player, and he's so dialed into that gig. But then I looked down, I'm like, oh yeah, he's a double pedal, and he knew exactly when to use it. And it was like, I just use it for endings. That's what everyone says. But I know that there were some times where it's like you didn't notice that he was using it, and it just filled in the sound, or it was like more like was he was singing, or like wanted to like replicate like a tom hit. It's a big kick he uses, so it's a nice big fat low tone. But he used it in such a tasteful way, and I think for drummers to always say I'm not a double pedal player, and I think Ben, you said that one now, but I don't think I understand why people aren't. because I think they associate it the way, but I just think it's another great tool if you're playing a single kick to just have there, unless there's a space issue with your hi-hat and you want to be closer, just to have it there and to be able to use it tastefully, I think is something that every drummer should always have. And I love the tech behind double pedals. I was talking about the mirror rod and stuff, and I love how they work. And to master a double pedal feels very different than mastering two kicks. But just that to see like a master like that use it, it's a reminder. Like when I first moved to New York after college, I was playing in prog shit with no vocalist all through college and wondering why like no one liked us. So when I got to New York, I had sold my drums. I'm like, I'm going to focus on TV. And of course, I'm like, oh, I can play music here. I bought like a Rockstar kit and we played Continental, which is a long defunct punk club down in the East Village. And I was in this punk band and I was, of course, like a hard rock metal type player. And I brought my double pedal to the Continental to play with my band. The band was called Jerk Alert.
That's amazing.
I brought my double. It's great, right? It's a fun band, but it was just like the guys and girls I play with and who I worked with at the Daily Show. They thought I was great, because they were all just like tinkerers, but like they loved music and it was a fun thing. But then I showed up at Continental, like bringing my double pedal in, and the fucking other bands were like, this fucking guy. The amount of hate I got from it was and I thought it was so funny. And then my guitar player is like, dude, don't use the double pedal. And I go, then get another drummer. I use a double pedal. And it made us different. And it was cool. But holy shit, the amount of like, it's a cheat. It's this. It's like, yeah, okay. There's some things you should be able to do on a single only and not rely on a double. It's just another tool in the arsenal. That's all. And I think it's its own paintbrush that we should all, have in our setups, at least on call. And also, last fun fact, Abe told me that he didn't know how to play double pedal and he had auditioned for Steve Vai. So he took like 2 or 3 days and learned how to play double pedal and got the gig. Fuck you. What a fucking G. The best.
It's really hard.
It's hard, but like,
hard.
dude, also that guy, I'm still just like, oh, I don't know how to play. So then I did. And he didn't say it in like a showboaty way. He's just like, I didn't know how to play double pedal. I had to figure out double pedal quick if I wanted that gig. I'm like, for Steve Vai? What are we doing? Nailed it. That's my die-on.
What about you, Neil?
I gave you so much time to think about it.
I know. I was just so intrigued with your story. All the name dropping that I just.
Thank you.
No, I was gonna pump drummers up a little bit with not being so hard on yourself, posting things. Sometimes I'll like look through a whole show. I'll find like 30 seconds. I'm getting better at it, but I'm finding like I'll find 30 seconds of a thing that I'm like really happy with. I think give yourself a little slack. Also, like when you're in a big room and you're playing and that one thing that you think you fucked up is probably not that big of a deal. In fact, not that big of a deal at all. I know every drummer does that. And we should all stop being so nitpicky and just post stuff. No one knows when that hit that you rushed a little bit is coming. So I don't know. It's not really a hill I want to die on, but I'm just trying to get better at not being so hard on myself for small things that don't really matter.
But isn't that the whole where we're at? That you can hear everything, that you can fix everything. I think that's where it comes from. It's like,
yeah, it's true.
And then to be able to know that everything can be heard and everything can be altered and fixed. I mean, I don't know how you don't get a complex as a drummer. And that's why a lot of these drummers who don't play with other people and only post themselves playing and only put up their good takes where they look good and they nailed it, or they can like replace like just a note here and there. It's just like, it's not setting them up for success in the real world. But then the reality is how much touring and how much are drummers needed in the real world. And also, what is real, man?
And stay tuned for part 2.
I actually think that's a great place to end it, so we'll fade out there. And that's the show. If you're listening on a platform that allows ratings and reviews, do that. It helps more people find the show, so it'll get bigger and better, and hopefully I'll have a chance to sell out one day. But you'll be an OG listener that can brag to all your friends. Anyways, why don't you go and check us out at bigfatsnaredrum.com and follow us on all the socials. Just search for Big Fat Snare Drum and you will find us. The show is edited in part using iZotope RX Audio Editor. It's amazing, so go check that out at iZotope.com. And thanks again to Gunnar Olsen for the theme music. Bye!